Tonight on CFTK-TV News, the Prince Rupert RCMP are seeking out a missing woman. 3 Indigenous children supposedly had concerns for their safety ignored for years, and a Langley man was sentenced for the murder of his wife.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening, I'm Cale Maslin, and here's what's making news in the Northwest and beyond for today. Some groups in Terrace that have been previously benefiting from a permissive tax exemption will soon be paying property taxes once again. CFTK-TV's Jaylene Matthews has the story.
It wasn't an easy decision for the city as council debated the removal of a permissive tax exemption that has previously exempted local nonprofits, places of worship, and the airport from paying property taxes. However, as taxes have increased, the mayor pointed out that the exemption amount has nearly doubled since he's been on council.
It is just going to keep growing and growing and growing based on the criteria. So I think the fair thing to do here is to spread this out amongst everybody, opposed to trying to pick, well, maybe this organization deserves it more than that organization, and we pull this group out of this tax exempt and keep this group in the tax exempt. So I think leveling it across is the fair way to go. I just don't think it's continually be fair for the taxpayers to offset all this. So I think this is a fair direction.
The decision was to reduce the permissive exemptions by 35% of 2024 values over a 4-year period, being 2025 through 2028. A funding cap was established at a collective amount of 1% of the city's annual 2024 property tax revenues.
So once the amended policy is adopted, the value of permissive tax exemptions in 2025 will be capped at just over $646,000. All eligible organizations will receive a combined tax exemption of this $646,000 and will be required to pay a combined total of just over $60,000 in municipal taxes. This phase down will continue over a 4-year period, and by 2028, eligible organizations will receive an approximate exemption of 65% of their municipal taxes and will be required to pay the remaining 35%. The intention would be that in the years 29 and beyond, this cap would remain steady, only increasing by the amount of the annual property tax.
Along with the 1% cap, nonprofit groups will be subject to the same annual property tax increases as everyone else. For CFTK-TV News in Terrace, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
Just like the Terrace RCMP, where yesterday the police in Prince Rupert are also trying to discover the whereabouts of a person that went missing. 18-year-old girl Lexis Hill is the one who has gone missing this time, and while it was not disclosed by the RCMP on when Hill was last seen, they did mention that she is known to hang out in the area of 7th Avenue East and Frederick Street in Prince Rupert. Although the RCMP did also say that despite their knowledge of her main hangout location, they acknowledged that she could very easily be anywhere in Prince Rupert or possibly even be in Port Edward too. Anyone who has an idea of where Hill could be located is asked to call the Prince Rupert RCMP at 250-624-2136. A beloved park in Terrace now has more ease of access for every kid that wants to play at it. CFTK-TV's Jaylene Matthews has more.
Children of Terrace can get excited to check out the new playground expansion at George Little Park. And now with new swings that adapt for those with mobility challenges, everyone can enjoy.
The Rotary Club of Terrace actually started during my year as president a couple of years ago. I was hoping we could bring some more swings to the park. I saw a massive need and really wanted to emphasize that we made sure that there was a swing for mobility challenged kids, which we now have in the park, which is fantastic. So would like to acknowledge the Rotary Club of Terrace who put $40,000 into this project, and then also the Terrace Community Forest was $100,000 in revitalizing some of the floor work and putting a few other pieces into this project.
Former Mayor Carol Leclerc emphasized the value of providing access.
You're not closing the door for people that can't climb properly, they can't communicate properly. Maybe they're in a wheelchair, maybe they got hearing problems, vision problems. But when you do this kind of stuff, it just opens up the world for everybody. And it makes the families who are struggling with complex kids more inclusive in the society as well, because they are seen more, they're part of the society. And I hope that this is the start of all of the parks being far more inclusive in the city of Terrace. When they say it takes a village to raise a child, this is part of raising a child in our community.
This is one of many projects the Terrace Rotary Club and Terrace Community Forests have worked on together.
I mean, Howe Creek's a good example of that. We dovetailed in with Rotary on that. There's been some work on Prairie Island that Rotary dovetailed with us on that. So, I mean, we just keep running these projects, and I think everybody in Terrace is going to really appreciate what we've done. And it benefits us in the long term, bringing more professionals in and everything else that comes with a community as a whole.
This is another extension of our commitment to the city of Terrace and our community to enhance its ability to be more inclusive and be a nice place to raise your family and enjoy our beautiful city. So thank you so much. We're so happy to be here.
And Director of Parks, Recreation and Culture, Tara Irwin, says there's more to come.
As we all know, we have some very dated playgrounds in our community, and we have been working to update them slowly, but there's a lot of opportunity.
For CFTK-TV News in Terrace, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
Coming up next, questions are lingering over the murder of a Sikh activist from last year. Welcome back. For months, CTV News had been investigating horrific allegations of child neglect in northern BC. And fair warning, the story is disturbing. 3 young Indigenous children are now in foster care, but relatives say that their concerns for the children's safety were ignored for years. Here's CTV's Michelle Bernoro with the heartbreaking consequences of a system failing BC's most vulnerable children.
It's okay.
At 4 years old, this little girl screams for hours.
Don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt yourself. No, honey, no.
She's afraid of people, afraid to go outside. She and her 2 brothers traumatized as their foster mom by years of neglect before finally being taken from their biological parents. Legally, we can't report the family's name or show their faces.
The children, when found, they were covered in feces, urine. They literally were feral. I'm not exaggerating. They were literally feral.
Their foster mom, who is also a relative, says there were repeated red flags indicating things weren't right inside the children's family home.
Overflowing garbage, feces, urine smells, food smell, rotting food smells, fast food everywhere.
Relatives say worry for the young Indigenous children led to at least 7 calls to social services and police.
Every time I would pick them up, they would be dirty, they would be smelly. I would immediately have to strip them of their clothes, wash everything that they had. It was after the incident where I gave the statement to child services, and then I was no longer welcome.
I was the one that phoned the police twice, but other family members did, in fact, yes, call MCFD, and I had a couple times as well.
Concerned relatives, one by one, cut off from the children, felt helpless.
I know the oldest jumped out of a window naked and was running down a street and was found by police and taken back to the home.
They could only assume social services was checking on the kids. Apparently, they were wrong.
To my knowledge, no, they did not go and check on the children. That is something I learned out more recently.
Last December, the siblings were finally removed after the biological mom herself contacted MCFD saying she could no longer cope. It was only then that the relatives would come to learn just how extensive the neglect had been.
Family members learned the children had been locked in their rooms daily, rarely allowed to leave, food brought to them a couple times a day.
We put food in front of them and they stuck their faces down like dogs would eat out of a bowl or a dog dish.
They are not verbal. We're not verbal at all. If anything, 1 to 2 words. No potty training whatsoever.
Seeing them after they were taken into care was heartbreaking.
It was disturbing. It was horrible. Especially when you called so many times.
But I wasn't prepared to see them the way that they were. It was awful.
The foster family and relatives demanding answers as to why the neglect was able to go on so long when social workers knew about it.
It's horrendous what those kids went through.
Sickening. Their entire job is to protect children. Nobody would listen to us. The fact that, from my understanding, not one home visit was done.
Michelle Bernoro, CTV News, Vancouver.
In the years since a Sikh activist was gunned down outside his Surrey Gurdwara, 4 suspects were arrested, but there are still many questions around Hardeep Singh Nijjar's death and whether the Indian government was actually involved with it. As Abigail Turner reports, mourners have concerns.
The Sikh community turned out in large numbers to mourn the man who spent his final moments inside these walls before he was fatally shot in the parking lot of the Surrey Gurdwara.
Hardeep Singh Nijjar is many things to many people, right? But one of those legacies will be his contribution and his sacrifice for Khalistan.
Nijjar was a leader in the Khalistan movement advocating for a separatist Sikh state.
There's been high-profile Sikhs that are involved in the Khalistan movement who have been targeted by foreign agents of the Indian government, some that have lost their lives and others who are in fear of their life.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau stunned Canadians when he said there are credible allegations India was involved in Nijjar's murder. Last month, 4 Indian citizens were arrested and charged with his killing here in Canada, but Nijjar's supporters believe others may also have been involved.
Those are the individuals that need to be brought to justice, and those are the individuals that are responsible and may ultimately inject more violence in the future here.
Without full accountability, they fear more deaths may follow. Despite that, activists say they won't be intimidated into silence.
We are going to continue, irrespective of the death threats and the assassination attempts on my life, for the cause Hardeep Singh Nijjar gave his life. I'm also ready to take a bullet, but will continue on that path.
On Friday, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was pictured shaking hands with India's Prime Minister, the first time the two have been pictured since Trudeau accused India of the involvement of Nijjar's death.
Shaking hands, having conversations. We would hope that this conversation is still primary, that this conversation of the death of a Canadian citizen.
With Canada's very large diaspora community watching closely. Abigail Turner, CTV News, Vancouver.
Turning to tonight's weather, the North Coast will include periods of drizzle and a low at 10 degrees. The Terrace-Kitimat area will be home to a chance of showers plus a low at 12 degrees. And the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District should see a chance of showers as well, in addition to a low at 7 degrees. On the North Coast, the upcoming week will consist almost entirely of rain and clouds, while the high shifts between 16 and 13 degrees. In the Terrace-Kitimat area, the week for them will be similar in terms of getting mostly clouds and rain, but with a sunny day too and a high moving from 27 to 17 degrees. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, the next week or so should get a little more sun, but will still deal with rain and clouds as well, while the high bounces from 26 to 19 degrees. Checking out the highways now, visit Drive BC for the latest and up-to-date conditions, and as always, drive safe out there. On Highway 16, there is utility work, bridge maintenance, roadside brushing, road construction work, mowing, and several special events. Highway 37 has some paving operations, bridge maintenance, roadside brushing, and frost heaves. The Nishka Highway was home to some bridge maintenance, and the Telegraph Creek Road has frost heaves. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come, the provincial government is being sued over the policies of St. Paul's Hospital. Welcome back. He eventually pled guilty to killing his wife, and now a Langley man is being sentenced for his crimes. The family of Naomi Onotera gave emotional victim impact statements in court, speaking to the profound loss their family and her daughter are enduring. Ben Milger has the details, some of which are disturbing.
People in the gallery openly wept as friends and family shared the ways Naomi Onotera touched their lives and the devastating impact her death at the hands of Obnas Regis, her husband, has had on them. Family reported 40-year-old Onotera missing in late August 2021, and the community rallied to search for the popular elementary school teacher. In December, Regis would admit to undercover police that he killed his wife by punching her during an argument. He also said he dismembered her body and disposed of her remains.
Nice story. Yes, but that's not the picture you want the world to see.
Despite that confession, he initially pleaded not guilty before abruptly changing his plea a few days into the trial at New Westminster Supreme Court.
When I hit her, she fell down.
Court heard Regis left the couple's 18-month-old child in a playpen next to her mother as Onotera lay on the floor struggling to breathe. The child was also with him as he took public transit and a taxi from Surrey to Maple Ridge to Fort Langley, where he scattered Onotera's remains along the bank of the Fraser River. My sister's murder is something I will never heal from. It will be etched in my heart and mind, and the pain and sorrow will never go away, her sister Kirsten Kerr said in her victim impact statement. The Crown is seeking a sentence of 14 years on the manslaughter charge and an additional 5 for the indignity to Onotera's remains, with the sentences to be served consecutively. What Mr. Regis did was horrific, inhuman, monstrous, and almost unimaginable, Crown Counsel told the court. Regis sat stoically, staring straight ahead and showing no emotion as his former in-laws laid bare their trauma, grief, and anger as a result of what he did to Onotera. The sentencing hearing is scheduled to last 4 days. Ben Milger, CTV News, New Westminster.
Now to the controversy around medically assisted death and the religious views directing one of BC's largest hospitals. The family of a 34-year-old woman transferred from St. Paul's in her final moments is suing BC. CTV's Shannon Patterson reports on what the family and advocates are hoping to get out of this.
Sam O'Neill chose medical assistance in dying, or MAID, so she could pass away peacefully, surrounded by family. Instead, the 34-year-old, who was suffering from end-stage cervical cancer, endured a chaotic transfer from her palliative care room at St. Paul's Hospital in the final hours of her life.
I can't even imagine the extent of her pain just before she died. And then they bounced her across the city.
O'Neill was sedated for the forced transfer and didn't wake up to say goodbye to her family before undergoing MAID at another facility.
We just don't want to see it happen to anybody else. It was horrible.
So 14 months after her daughter's death, Gay O'Neill has filed a civil lawsuit against the province, arguing the MAID exemption granted to public facilities run by religious organizations like Providence Healthcare, which oversees St. Paul's, is contrary to the Canadian Charter.
It's absolutely not about compensation. We don't wish to be compensated. The only thing that we want is for forced transfers to stop.
A Vancouver MAID practitioner who opposes forced transfers is also a plaintiff in the lawsuit.
I'm the one who has to tell them, I can't do this. I cannot provide this at your bedside when I know I can, but I'm being prevented by the religious beliefs of this institution, which I don't share.
MAID advocacy group Dying with Dignity has assembled a legal team to take on the BC government in what it hopes will be a precedent-setting case.
We're looking for the MAID policy in British Columbia to be struck down or amended so that religious institutions no longer have the exemption to refuse to provide MAID, which is how it stands right now.
The health ministry said it can't comment on the lawsuit that's now before the courts. In response to outrage over what happened to Sam O'Neill, it is building a MAID facility adjacent to St. Paul's Hospital, so patients won't need to be transferred out by vehicle, but they'll still have to leave their room in palliative care.
For Sam, she had 2 operations on the Sunday and the Monday before her Tuesday passing. And the doctor specifically said even on those transfers within the building, it hurt a lot.
The O'Neills hope the lawsuit on behalf of their late daughter is the beginning of the end of all forced transfers for MAID.
For us to jump into the ring and try to stop people from getting hurt, I think she's sitting there saying, yay, Mom and Dad.
Shannon Patterson, CTV News, Vancouver.
And now we turn our attention to the stock markets. The Canadian dollar is up 11 cents, the price of gold is up $17.90, oil is up 99 cents, natural gas is up 12 cents, aluminum is down $16. In Toronto, the TSX is up 23.42 points, the Venture Index is up 2.70, in New York, the Dow Jones is up 56.76, and Nasdaq is up 5.21. Still ahead, a BC actor is raising awareness about the need for blood donations because of his mom. Welcome back. A BC actor known best for his role in Letterkenny is turning the spotlight on his mom. Through a crafty collaboration, he's hoping to honor the woman who raised him, while also raising awareness about the need for blood donations. CTV's Becca Clarkson explains.
Lynn Johnston has always had the need for speed. But last June, the 64-year-old drag racer was forced to slow down after being diagnosed with acute myelogenous leukemia. 1 year and 10 rounds of chemotherapy later, Lynn's well-being revolves around blood and platelet donations.
Without these transfusions, my mom's quality of life would just not be what it is today.
You may recognize Lynn's son, Tyler Johnston, from his acting career.
How flattering.
Now, he's using his platform to encourage more people to become donors through a collaboration with Container Brewing. Owner Dan Webster admits he originally pitched a partnership in hopes of tapping into Tyler's fan base. But that was before he realized the pair shares a devastating experience.
My mother was unfortunately diagnosed and then 1 week later died from a brain tumor. I definitely connected with them very quickly, on the same page about, it's our mother, and, making sure that we remember them and coming up with something that could help really celebrate her.
That something is Lynn's Light Lager. Its namesake got to try it herself at the official launch party at Container on June 16th. Canadian Blood Services joined the festivities too.
We're rallying behind Lynn to support her in this battle.
The goal of the event? To sign up more blood donors. 1 out of every 2 Canadians is eligible, but only 1 in 81 actually gives blood.
The need for blood is constant. Blood only lasts 42 days and platelets only 7 days. To treat 1 patient with leukemia, we need 8 donors to help somebody just for 1 week.
At this point, more than 400 donors have helped Lynn, but she'll need hundreds more as she battles this incurable disease.
At the end of this month, end of June, she'll start her 11th round of chemotherapy, and she's a tough chick. She's doing great. Every day is a new day, and we're taking it 1 day at a time.
In the meantime, Lynn's Light Lager is raising awareness and funds for blood donation services, 1 can at a time. Becca Clarkson, CTV News, Vancouver.
Taseko Mines recently revealed in a statement that they have managed to come to a tentative agreement with their hundreds of employees that were on strike at its Gibraltar mine, located in the central part of BC. The deal is currently up for being potentially ratified by the workers, who are being represented by the Unifor General Trade Union. Voting is reportedly expected to end up taking place throughout the early part of this ongoing week. Workers at the mine, which is located just north of Williams Lake for reference, have been on strike since back on the first day of this month. That's all of our news for now. From everyone at CFTK-TV News, I'm Kale Maslin, and thanks for watching.